So when I was 17, and I think it's this story, I think is so interesting because I feel like now this would potentially never happen, right? I can't even now when I think back to the story, I'm like, how did this happen? How did my parents let me go? But yeah, so when I was 17, I was, like I said, I was living in the other city slightly south of here, which is an improvement from around here, but still I was in the middle of kind of the Swedish high school, upper secondary school. I was on my second year and I just wanted to leave. I didn't want to stay in the program I was studying. I didn't want to be in Sweden anymore. So I found an opportunity to go and work for a man who was running a skydiving club in the Canary Islands in Gran Canaria. And the reason for skydiving club was because I had been skydiving in Sweden. I had my own certificate. So that's kind of why I was already in that world. So I found this man, German man in his 40s, no, a Belgian man actually in his 40s, who lived and ran a skydiving club in Gran Canaria. And I found him online and he said I can come and work for him and help him sell tandem jumps to tourists on the beach, which I did. So at 17 years old, I moved to Gran Canaria and it sounds kind of dodgy, but it really wasn't. There was nothing dodgy about it at all. So I moved there, worked for him a bit. I also worked in a bar a little bit, and that was my first, like, that was how it started. That's how I left Sweden. Where I think the travel industry is going, I think more meaningful travel, more meaningful connections. I think people are, I love to see that there's more and more and more like little kind of small curated group trips happening. I think that's really nice, especially for solo travelers who might not want to travel solo. They want to meet people. You find the community there, of like-minded people that you can travel with, which is really nice. And then a lot of these companies are offering more kind of, curated travel experiences, which is different. And then, of course, I'm not sure mainstream travel, like as it is, will change anytime in the time that we will see. I don't know, but I think definitely more sort of, more meaningful travel and kind of curated experiences and more boutique experiences. I think. And then, personally for me, I want to, I want to have more experiences as well with like community. So where I slow down and I spend a month, 2 months, 3 months in the same place, maybe kind of nomad workation style opportunities as well, where I can kind of live or stay with other nomads. Because at the end of the day, even though chronic solo traveler, I still want that community of people around who are the same, and kind of trying to find that with intention. It's in my future. And then also, I want to be able to like visit dog shelters where I can. That's definitely in my plan. And then just kind of making sure that communities that I pass through benefit, and not just me or other travelers. Like, I think that's also important, is considering the impact that I have when I travel on these communities. And I think slowing down, going to places in the off season, going to places that are maybe not as big, not as famous, going to the lesser known places. I think that in the very, very northernmost part of New Zealand is a place called Cape Reinga, and it's where the Maoris say that, first of all, it's where the Pacific Ocean meets the Tasman Sea. So you can see there's a lighthouse, and then you can see how the two seas meet there. And it's where the Maoris say that that's where souls go out to sea when they pass. And it's such a unique place. I don't know, like when I was there, I've had a feeling that I never had before in my entire life. Like, it's really weird, and I probably shouldn't be like, I've not told many people this, so I'm going to tell this now on this podcast that's being recorded. But actually, Cape Reinga was the only place that has ever made me cry because it was so beautiful. And I didn't even know why I was crying. I didn't even understand why I was crying. I was just like, why am I crying now? But it was just such a powerful feeling up there.
Johanna, welcome to the Nifty Travel Podcast.
Hi, Alex. Thank you very much. Super excited to have a chat with you.
Yeah, you're most welcome. And one thing I always like to start asking is about your earliest memories of travel.
Ooh, obviously before I had any memories, but maybe this is where my kind of restless soul comes from. When my mom was pregnant with me, my mom and my dad went to Australia for like a backpacking trip. So that was my first ever trip in in my mom's belly. But my earliest memories, I guess, are of being going to sort of Greece, Turkey when I was young with my dad and his wife. When we would go to the north of Sweden quite a lot with my mom as well, and that side because my grandfather was living up there, so we would go over and we'd go over to Finland. We have some family there as well. So those are kind of the earliest from when I was really young, like a child.
It sounds like travel was instilled in you at an early age.
I think so. Yeah, exactly. And then it just kind of it's been my whole life, ever since I was a teenager. It's been my whole life. So yeah, I think so.
But before that, presumably you grew up in Sweden. So tell me what was that like?
Yeah, exactly. So I grew up not far from where I am right now, actually, in a small town just on the east coast of Sweden. In the north, it's really in the middle of the country, but we still say it's the north. Though the people who are really in the north, they say we are not in the north, of course. So I grew up there. It's a small town. I wanted to leave when I was 15. I was like, I can't live in the small town anymore. I did everything I could to leave. My dad took me around different schools in Sweden, tried to find an option. Eventually, I moved to another cities just a little bit south of here. So I think like my sort of need for change and need for new and adventure really started from a very early age. But I think of course, it was a great place to grow up, and I think that's where my love of the sea comes from as well. Being the growing up by the coast, I always feel really good when I'm by the seaside, really.
Well, I was recently talking to another gentleman connected through uh, mutual acquaintances who's also based in Sweden, and of course the myth that was busted is, I assume that everybody who lives or grows up in a Scandinavian country, well, surely it's cold all the time, but of course that's total. That's not true at all, is it? It's there's a lot more seasonal change that us Southern Europeans would recognize.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, there is like now it's a bit warmer here. It's maybe 20 degrees today, which I still think is not very high for July. Last week I was away in the north of Sweden in the mountains fishing with my dad and brother, and it was around 16 degrees. I missed like 29 degrees down here, which was the 1 week of summer maybe. Um, but yeah, it gets freezing cold in the winter, really dark as well, not many hours of sunlight. And then it's the opposite in the summer. It can be really warm. And of course, we have, it's light almost all night. So it's really nice being here in the summer. But I usually only come back to Sweden in the summer. The winter is too cold and dark for me.
Ah, you've changed.
Yeah, for sure.
So you were saying that you were uh, well, you had itchy feet from the age of 15. So what happened when you were 17 that made it true?
Yeah. So when I was 17, and I think it's this story, I think it's so interesting because I feel like now this would potentially never happen, right? I can't even now when I think back to the story, I'm like, how did this happen? How did my parents let me go? But yeah, so when I was 17, I was, like I said, I was living in the other city slightly south of here, which was an improvement from around here, but still I was in the middle of kind of the Swedish high school, upper secondary school. I was on my second year and I just wanted to leave. I didn't want to stay in the program I was studying. I didn't want to be in Sweden anymore. So I found an opportunity to go and work for a man who was running a skydiving club in the Canary Islands in Gran Canaria. And the reason for skydiving club was because I had been skydiving in Sweden. I had my own certificate. So that's kind of why I was already in that world. So I found this man, German man in his 40s, no, a Belgian man actually in his 40s, who lived and ran a skydiving club in Gran Canaria. And I found him online, and he said I can come and work for him and help him sell tandem jumps to tourists on the beach, which I did. So at 17 years old, I moved to Gran Canaria, and it sounds kind of dodgy, but it really wasn't. There was nothing dodgy about it at all. So I moved there, worked for him a bit. I also worked in a bar a little bit, and that was my first, like, that was how it started. That's how I left Sweden.
Well, I mean, you couldn't have picked a more different location to Sweden, so you were getting much more all around year weather, and you're pursuing something you were interested in. So how did you get into skydiving to begin with?
So actually my mom was a skydiver when I was really young. So when I was like 2, 3, 4 years old, she was a skydiver. So I do have also vague memories of kind of being with her at the skydiving club. Then she quit, and then a number of years later, maybe when I was sort of 12, 13, she met her now husband, who was also a skydiver, who she had known already from that skydiving club. And when I was 13, he offered to take me on a tandem jump for free. And I was like, oh my God, should I, shouldn't I? And I was agonizing over, and then I decided to do it. And I was completely obsessed after that. It was the best experience I'd had. And then I did another tandem jump when I was 14. Me and my friend from school here, we started helping out at the skydiving club. We learned how to pack parachutes. So we were doing that for the skydivers. We were working in the cafe there, selling them, like making them sandwiches and things like that. And then when we were 15, we were finally old enough, with our parents' consent, to take the course on how to skydive. So that's what we did.
Oh wow! So, what kind of people did you get to meet in the Canaries then? Was it, I suppose, were there people similar to yourselves that were, because they were there on holiday and they thought, oh wow, why not?
Yeah, so it was like a different. So obviously, this was now 22 years ago, so memories are a little bit vague. But there were people in the skydiving club, of course, which are always kind of interesting, and interesting characters, people who engage in skydiving, I think. So there were a few from different countries there, and then I also had a few friends from Sweden come and join me. Actually, a couple of girls from the skydiving club here, they came down and joined me in the Canary Islands as well for a couple of months. Or for a month or something. So that was also really nice. But apart from that, yeah, I met other tourists, met other people, like other girls who worked in the bar where I worked. There were British tourists I remember that I got along really well with, that we had fun with. So yeah, all sorts of people.
Yeah, sounds very exciting. But skydiving is not the only thing that you're interested in. You also like writing and writing poetry. So
Yes.
are they two different things, and does one come before the other? How did you get attracted to both?
Writing and poetry, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, so I've been writing, I guess, for like as long as I can remember, really, but I've never really been publishing much, or um showing it to the world, I guess. And then I have poetry is also kind of new to me. I've taken a few creative writing courses at university in the past sort of, I don't know, 8 years or something, both in Swedish and in English. But I write only in English now. I'm a much better writer in English because I've lived abroad for so long. I'm better at English than Swedish, ironically. Especially when it comes to writing. But so I've taken a few classes, and then I started being interested in poetry in the last few years only, really, and started writing more and more poetry. I think I always had some sort of imposter syndrome, feeling like I'm not good enough. I don't know how to write poetry. Like I'm not, because the way I write poetry, I think is it's not maybe as intricate or as beautiful as what you imagine poetry to be like, right? Mine is maybe more direct and specific to a very kind of specific thing that happened to me, maybe. So, but yeah, I've recently started publishing. I'm working on a poetry collection that is kind of on hold a little bit now when I'm trying to grow my business, but I'm trying to work on it as much as I can. And I also started publishing essays on Substack, which is really exciting. So I've started writing some essays there about travel and about other life experiences and things like that. So it's nice to finally get my writing out there and get some good feedback.
Yeah, it must be exciting.
Yeah.
You talk about words that land. So what do you mean by that?
Words that land. Remind me, where do I talk about words that land? I'm trying to refresh my memory.
In your bio on your website as to why writing was important to you.
Oh yeah, okay, of course, yeah. I think, yeah, to be able to make someone feel something with your words, with something that you created, is it might be one of the biggest honors. So you're a writer as well, right, Alex? So you can maybe relate to this. If I write something, if I put a sentence together, or if I put a poem together that makes someone feel something, then I can't imagine a better feeling than this. I already feel really good when I write something. Like for me, the thing that makes me feel the best, I think, is when I sit down and write something that I'm proud of. And then, so that's already like a good feeling. And then to have other people connect with those words, or to hear that they meant something, or they made them think, or anything really, that's an incredible feeling, I think.
And because you have and do a lot of traveling, is that now, well, it's become interconnected in a way? You know, is travel influencing what you write?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say so. I think like travel influences everything in my life, right? Because I've been traveling for so long and it's so deeply ingrained to who I am, both personally and professionally. I think it definitely has an impact. And a lot of my travel, even if writing, even if it's about maybe personal stories, it still is about like traveling is always kind of weaved into there anyway. So if I write a story about something that happened to me while I was in Sri Lanka recently, for example, then that's still it's about travel as well, in a sense, even if the kind of the deeper meaning of the story is not travel itself. Like travel is there because I'm always traveling.
Yeah, exactly. Travel's good for many reasons, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So you went to the Canaries, but at some point you decided, maybe there's another kind of travel I could immerse myself with. So what did you do next? You mentioned working with airlines and in the travel industry. So what was your in, and what did you make of it?
Yeah, so my first time ever into the travel industry was when I was 18 and I lived in Dublin. So that was after I came back from the Canary Islands. I moved to Dublin, and then I did some kind of smaller jobs first, counting buses for the city of Dublin, City Council of Dublin, and then I landed a job at Lufthansa Airlines, working for their like Scandinavian reservations team. And yeah, that was just life changing. I didn't really realize that I had such an interest in aviation up until then. But yeah, I loved it so much. So ever since then, I've mostly worked in the travel industry. I've had a few other jobs here and there, especially kind of for a year during COVID, or a few jobs like earlier in my career as well, maybe that were different. But apart from that, it's all been the travel industry, various roles. I also worked for Air France, KLM, Delta Airlines, and I worked for a few large kind of corporate travel management companies in the last few years.
So I guess seeing the travel industry on the other side of the desk must have really opened your eyes to how the mechanics of the industry worked. So were there any kind of, like you said that you discovered a love for aviation, did you discover things you didn't know about just how it all, all these millions of pieces that all somehow fit magically together.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the things I really love about the travel industry as well. And especially when it comes to like corporate travel management, which I've been working in for the last, I mean, now I quit my job almost 2 years ago to be fully nomadic. But before that, I was working for maybe 5 or 6 years in corporate travel management. And yeah, I find it super fascinating, and I really love that that aspect of the travel world as well, where you just get to, and especially my last few jobs were in emergency assist, out of hours teams. So really like having to help travelers who are stranded somewhere or have some kind of emergency, and you have to really problem solve and figure out kind of how to get them out of there or get them onwards. So yeah, there's so many things. There's so many things about the travel industry, and I think like working in it and then also traveling so much, I feel like I really have, yeah, kind of a good idea on both sides, right? So
Yeah, exactly. So that sort of industry experience then has kind of helped you going forward, because you've probably seen more than the traveler would ever see. I mean, you talked
yeah.
about people who have problems when they're abroad and they need assistance. Was it that sort of thing that kind of surprised you, or it was just, oh, okay, this is just part of the parcel? Some people do need assistance from time to time.
Yeah, I guess it depends on what it is as well. I mean, I think for me, like having worked in this industry for so long helped me as well become a better traveler, I think, for sure. But yeah, some of the situations that I've had over the few years with clients obviously have been things that are completely out of their control. They could be force majeure of any kind of reasons when they travel, right, for business especially. But um yeah, some things probably are avoidable as well, of course, if if you have the knowledge. So I think, yeah, for me, super super grateful to have worked in the industry as well, to kind of perfect my travel skills, if you will.
Yeah, now you've got to travel to a lot of countries and many of the continents on our single planet.
Yeah,
I just wanted to ask you about your impressions of some of the countries you mentioned on your website. So you
yeah.
mentioned Mexico, Sri Lanka, and New Zealand. What was it about those countries that really made you go, wow?
If I start with Mexico, I guess I've been to Mexico now 5 times, including last year. I spent 6 months in Mexico, and there's just something about Mexico. The vibe there just makes me happy. It's a very colorful country. Obviously, sunshine kind of year round, depending on where you are. And it's people are so friendly. People are they're very happy. They're very happy to help you. They're always smiling, laughing. I feel like it's a very joyful country. Like, I don't know, you see people dancing. One of my absolute favorite memories of Mexico from when I spent 6 months there last year was I went to Mexico City maybe on 4 separate occasions, and every time I went there, on a Sunday, there's a small neighborhood in Mexico City called Santa Maria la Ribera, and every Sunday there in the park they have they have music, and they have the locals come there to dance salsa, I guess. I'm not sure now, but yeah, I would imagine it's salsa. And they dress up, and it's so beautiful. And I would go there. There's also one of my favorite restaurants in Mexico City is in this neighborhood, so I would go there every Sunday, eat my las jirafa tortilla, which is super nice, and then go and watch these people dance. And it's so simple and it's so beautiful, and they seem so happy, and it's a beautiful experience. And there's this one couple there that are there every week. I saw them every time I went there, and they always dress up in these really really beautiful vintage outfits. They're an older couple, and they dance, and it's it's amazing. So Mexico just kind of makes me feel joyful, and the food, of course, the food is incredible in Mexico as well. There's so many different like amazing street food, and that's really big for me when I travel. And then it's just the architecture, the colors, the landscapes. It's such a varied country as well. Before last year, I'd only been to the Yucatan Peninsula, so I traveled a lot around the Yucatan. But this time, I went to a lot more different places. And it's just, yeah, so varied. You have beautiful, beautiful mountains, and obviously amazing rocky coastlines. You have these colonials, like old colonial cities, and then you have all the lost my train of thought. But Mexico. I could talk forever about Mexico. Probably it's an amazing country. And then Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is new to me. I went there for the first time this year. I'd never had, I guess it was never really on my radar much to go. But I ended up going there for a month recently. I was there in April, May, and it just had it had a profound effect on me for a few different reasons. But partly because I went there, I was going through a bit of a difficult situation there, but also started kind of going through the healing journey that I needed to go through while I was there. But it's such a beautiful, diverse country as well. It feels really wild in a way. Like maybe it's because I went there in the shoulder season, but there weren't a lot of tourists really where I went. And it felt like the country was wild in a way that's maybe hard to explain, but it was different from other places I'd been. Again, the food is absolutely incredible. If I could eat Sri Lankan rice and curry every day for the rest of my life, I would probably be happy. And then the locals, again, so friendly, always happy to help. Like I think one thing that really always strikes me with when I go to a new country, and one of the reasons I usually love it is when the locals are incredible. So that's something that really struck me as well with Sri Lanka. The locals were so friendly and so happy and smiley and willing to help. And then I don't know, one of my favorite experiences about Sri Lanka was in Ella in the mountains in the highlands. I was walking on the railway tracks there. And at first it was a bit scary, right? Because you're not supposed to be walking on railway tracks. Everything that we've ever been taught is like, do not walk on railway tracks. But there, the locals walk on railway tracks to get between places. So I started doing it, and I realized like this is incredible. It's such a beautiful way to get from a place to another, and because you're not surrounded by anything else than nature. I was walking there, and there were a few locals passing by. I didn't see any other tourists, so that was an amazing experience as well. Watch out for trains, obviously, but yeah, that was really great. And I probably babbled on here. That's what happens. New Zealand, it was a while ago that I went to New Zealand, but yeah, it's probably always going to be one of the most beautiful countries I've ever been. I spent about 2 weeks there, only on the North Island, because I went there in 2018 to go to a concert actually, and then I also spent 2 weeks on the North Island exploring around, and yeah, just absolutely stunning place. In the very northernmost part of New Zealand is a place called Cape Reinga, and it's where the Maoris say that, well, first of all, it's where the Pacific Ocean meets the Tasman Sea, so you can see kind of, there's a lighthouse, and then you can see how the two seas meet there. And it's where the Maoris say that that's where souls go out to sea when they pass. And it's such a unique place. I don't know, like when I was there, I've had a feeling that I never had before in my entire life. Like it's really weird, and I probably shouldn't be like, I've not told many people this, so I'm going to tell this now on this podcast that's being recorded. But actually, Cape Reinga was the only place that has ever made me cry because it was so beautiful. And I didn't even know why I was crying. I didn't even understand why I was crying. I was just like, why am I crying now? But it was just such a powerful feeling up there. So that was, yeah, New Zealand, just stunning nature, landscapes. Yeah, amazing place.
Well, it is a beautiful place, and
Yeah.
I didn't go quite. I've not been quite so far as the place you described, because I think isn't it a very long drive north of Auckland.
Yeah, exactly. North of the Bay Islands, it's very far, and it's like difficult to get there as well. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the Bay of Islands was absolutely stunning.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing.
Well, it seems to me that a common draw that connects you to the place is the food that you discover there. Do you think the stronger the connection to local cuisine, the stronger the memories get for the locations as a whole?
Absolutely. Yes. Like I'm very, very food driven when I travel, and I love to try kind of, the local street food, going to locally owned places. And for me, that's one of the most important things, I think. And always, yes, the places that stay with me are the places usually where I love the food, like Vietnam, love Vietnamese food, Morocco as well. Like I think not daily, but I think quite a lot about the Moroccan kefta tagine, which is my favorite. So, and I will travel back to a place just to eat the same food again. Like I have, there's another place. I was in Bosnia last year, and in Mostar there is a place that I discovered just by being out walking, and it looked like it is a really local place. And then I went in, and they had, it was the best burek I tried in more than 1 month in Bosnia. And yeah, I would probably go back to Bosnia and Mostar just to eat this burek again. So yeah, absolutely. I think food is super important, and it shapes the experience that I have, certainly.
And it's interesting talking uh, to people who mentioned food about locations, because I recently spoke to a lady from Romania, and she said that when she grew up in Bukovina, which I think is a northeastern region of Romania, she just assumed that she was eating Romanian food, but as an adult, she's realised that cuisine is, particularly in places like Europe, which has had multiple border changes, cuisines are actually a fusion of many cultures. Have you been in a cuisine situation which seems a little bit confusing? And it's got a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we definitely have that in Sweden for sure. There's a lot of kind of different fusions. And then yeah, of course you have, like, all over the Balkans, you have similar food, you have the burek, but then it's different, slightly different in every country. I think as well, all over kind of Central America, the food in each country is distinct, but also there are similarities, of course. And same in Asia as well. I think, like, it is kind of interesting just comparing Thailand to Vietnam, for example, very close together, or Malaysia. The food is, there are some similarities, of course, rice, noodles, etc., but very different, right? Like very, very different. But yeah, in Sweden, for example, people would put kebab meat on a pizza. My brother recently had a pizza with kebab meat, pepperonis, and like French fries on top. Banana as well. People will put curry powder on a pizza. So in Sweden, people are pretty good at coming up with these random food experiences.
Now, you listed a few things that you like when you go to different countries, and you mentioned cafes. You must have good Wi-Fi and great coffee. So that seems like another criteria that would draw you to a particular place if you like the coffee.
Yes, absolutely. My one problem now is that 3 years ago I stopped drinking caffeine. So now I only drink decaf coffee. So it's a little bit more difficult finding good cafe. Some places they don't really know what decaf coffee is, for example. But yeah, I love finding like small, cute, quirky cafes. And that's something. Usually sometimes I will try to Google and try to like really do some deep research into finding these places that are maybe more kind of off the beaten track, or and same with restaurants. Like I'll spend usually like time researching beforehand, like are there any specific dishes to eat, or like restaurants that are more local, off the beaten track, that I can find. And I have like my little Notion travel planner that I can put everything in beforehand. And but yeah, absolutely, coffee. I've been to a coffee farm in Guatemala. That was before I stopped drinking caffeine, and and there they have some of the best coffee I've ever had. Vietnamese coffee as well. Actually, now I was in Vietnam for a month now a few months ago, and I said to myself, they don't do decaf coffee either, but I said, like, I can't not drink Vietnamese coffee. So I allowed myself to drink like a little bit, because I can't drink a full cup because I'll be like all shaky. But as I thought I can't not drink Vietnamese coffee, so I had. But yeah, Vietnamese coffee is one of the best in the world, certainly, as well.
Mm. Do you think the cafe culture now has become a global phenomenon? You can go almost everywhere and find a cafe somewhere.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure. And they're different in different countries as well. In a lot of places, of course, you'll have these kind of like hipster specialty coffee places, and some of them I love them. And not, like some of them are amazing, and really like well kind of. But I like the places that are designed aesthetically, that they look fun or quirky or nice, or they have maybe mismatching furniture, or I don't know, so it's kind of, yeah, quirkier places like this. But yeah, and then in places like Morocco, for example, then yeah, like there'll just be difference. Like there's just like, well, I'm trying to think, like, what are cafes in Morocco like? Well, a lot of colors and cushions and fabrics, and there's more tea, of course, in Morocco. But yeah, they'll be like different in different countries as well. But I think you'll almost always find these like specialty cafe type places around now.
Yeah, you're right. And some countries seem to be better at quirky cafes than others. I noticed in Thailand in particular, there was chain stores is not something Thais really go in for. Every other person is an entrepreneur, and they either run a restaurant or a cafe.
Exactly. Yeah, it's amazing. It's one of the things I love the most about countries like this. Like I always say that about Mexico as well. Everyone there is an entrepreneur. They sell something. But yeah, in Thailand, exactly. There's this one place like called the Unicorn Cafe in Bangkok, which is just absolutely mad, and it's full of colors and unicorns hanging everywhere. And so yeah, there's a lot of kind of places like that, which is fun. And then just more, yeah, just maybe not as out there, but yeah, there's a lot. I love Thailand and Bangkok. It's one of my favorite cities.
Mm. Now, you also mentioned that you like a bit of volunteering, and in particularly in dog shelters. So you obviously have an affinity for our four-legged friends.
Yes.
Did you have a dog when you were growing up, and therefore you feel like, yeah, I'd like to give back to another dog somewhere else?
I actually never had a dog growing up. I always wanted one, but I never had one. We had cats growing up with my mom. My mom now has a dog since 11 years, so it's really nice. At least when I go there, I spend time with her. But I've always wanted one, but with my lifestyle, I can't have a dog. So that's why it's really nice to kind of visit dog shelters, donate to dog shelters when I can, or help out when I can. But I had a dream during COVID, I came across a man running a dog shelter in Greece called Takis, and he was posting loads of live videos from his shelter, and obviously showing his volunteers. And from then I had this idea, I want to go and volunteer in a dog shelter sometime. So that's kind of originally why I quit my job a couple of years ago, was to go and volunteer in a dog shelter in Mexico. And then last summer, I decided I didn't really want to go back to find another job, so I stayed nomadic, and then I went to volunteer in a small animal rescue in the mountains of Spain last winter as well. And then didn't volunteer, but I went to visit a couple of dog shelters in Sri Lanka when I was there this year as well, which was really nice to see kind of how they're run and how they're helping out the communities as well, with the kind of sterilization campaigns, maybe, or vaccination campaigns, and things like this. So.
Well, you mentioned one of the challenges there of owning a dog. If you travel a lot, you can't give them the attention they deserve, and well, they mostly ask for attention. Do you think that's why there are so many shelters? Because people, they think they know how to look after a dog, but in reality, they struggle.
I think there's so many different problems in different countries, right? And each, like, a lot of, so in Mexico, for example, there's a big problem as well with street dogs. People are not sterilizing their dogs; they're letting them roam freely as well. And then when they get puppies, they don't want to deal with the puppies, so they dump them at shelters, or even they dump them in trash or things like that. So there's a big problem. So that's I think it's really important as well for them to for like rescue organizations and shelters to work with the local communities for sterilization campaigns. Same in Sri Lanka, but like the street dog situation in Sri Lanka is crazy. Like, I think it's the place I've seen the most street dogs that I've been. But it's also like nice because they're well taken care of by the community. So for one, like, I spent 2 weeks down in Ahangama in the south coast of Sri Lanka, and I would go for walks every day, and the street dogs were always in the same place. So I would like say hi to them in the same place every day, make friends with them a little bit. And then I went to visit this dog shelter there called Animal SOS Sri Lanka or something. I forgot exactly now, but they have like 2,400 dogs in the shelter. It's insane. Like, it's crazy. It's such a huge operation. I can't believe it, but it's a really, really nice shelter. The dogs have freedom to roam around. They're obviously kept in separate places as well, but they have freedom to they're not like locked in cages or anything. So it's a really nice place. And they also told me that they help out and they feed street dogs as well, and that the locals also feed street dogs. So you can see that they're like they're not starving. They don't look ratty or skinny. They all look kind of healthy, and they have their spots where they live. But yeah, it's there's problems in countries, right? And I think sterilization, I guess, is probably the biggest way to tackle that, like with the local communities.
Yeah. Well, it's nice that you go to places where they are accepted, even if they are not a member of their household, and people still love them.
Absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, you've had all these travel experiences working in the industry, but you reached a point, and you may have hinted at one of the reasons why you wanted to go independent, but you interestingly you've described this decision as going homeless by design. So
yes.
You'd clearly been thinking about this for a while. So what were the things that have influenced you to go to another stage of life, so to speak?
Yeah, I think obviously I've had a restless soul for as long as I can remember, and I've always moved. Like, I've lived in places for maybe a year, and then I've moved to another country or another city, or then I've gone traveling for a few months and come back. So there's always been this constant change, and I kind of like to say I'm addicted to change, which is the complete opposite from many people, right? So I was most recently I was living in Glasgow in Scotland for 3 years without moving apartments, which was the longest I've lived anywhere since I was 15, I think. And I mean, I loved it. I had a really beautiful apartment, amazing friends, great music community and music scene there. But there was something itching in me anyway, and it wasn't going away. So yeah, I decided to actually my apartment was going to be sold, and I thought, okay, now this is my sign that it's time to move on. So that's when I decided to quit my job. I went to Mexico for 6 months, and then came back last summer and decided I don't want to go back to kind of the corporate life again. I don't want to go back to being location dependent. I want to finally become location independent, like I've been kind of dreaming about for a while. So yeah, that was last summer.
Wow. So that must have been the inspiration for some of what you do now, which you call North by No East.
North of No East, yeah.
So that's an interesting name. So explain how you came up with this, and what do you do?
Yeah, so the inspiration for the name is actually from one of my favorite bands that I have spent the last like few years following, or the last 10 years following around the world. That's the band I went to see when I went to New Zealand, for example. So they have a song called North of No South. So that's where the inspiration for the name comes from. But I think for me, it has a deeper meaning than that, because North of No East is not, it's not a direction on a map that you can find, right? So it's all about stepping off the map, going your own way in life, in business, or you know, in whatever way you want. And that's kind of the ethos behind why I chose that brand name. I knew I didn't want to. I started my business last year first as a virtual assistant, and I knew I didn't want to have a name like virtually Johanna or Johanna's virtual assistant or something like this, right? Because it's not who I am. I wanted something that would more kind of represent who I am and how I see the world and the people I want to work with. So yeah, that's the story of where the name came from. And the band, I don't know if I mentioned, but it's Biffy Clyro.
Ah, wow. So, but you're supporting people who want to promote travel destinations. So I guess your experience in the travel industry, you saw something that wasn't happening.
Yes, exactly. So I actually relaunched my business a few months ago, and the idea for that came from I was on a cruise for digital nomads. And before, so that was kind of a group trip experience, right? Group trip retreat, whatever you want to call it. So beforehand, they had a page in Notion, which I already love. I was already using Notion before that. And they had a page in Notion where they entered all the information about the trip, basically, that we would need beforehand. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. This is so incredible. Instead of another experience that I had last year, which was the complete opposite, where 2 days before I was going where I was going, I didn't know where I was staying even. And I had to chase up the information. You know, I was already in the country of where I was going to spend a month in a workation, and then 2 days before, I didn't know where I was staying. I had to chase it up, and then I received like a really long kind of Word document that looked like it was from 2007 maybe. So these things combined made me realize that there is a need for like a better customer journey, right? For group trips, for retreats, for these kind of businesses. So now I design guest portals in Notion for group trips, retreats, or any kind of business that might need it, really. So if you have, for example, a schedule, if you have group activities, or if you need to, any kind of information, you can really build it in Notion. So that's what I do now. And then, you build out a guest portal for them to have one link that they can easily click on, and then they have the portal with information such as maybe the itinerary or schedule, accommodation information, packing list, FAQs, food, dietary information, or whatever information they might need before the trip release. So that's what I built. So that's how I relaunched my business after this digital nomad cruise, and that's what I'm trying to just build and grow now this summer and get the word out there.
Yeah, very exciting. You describe yourself as mildly obsessive.
With Notion, yeah.
Sounds like you're really into the tech side now.
Yeah, yeah, I am. I love it. I love building. I get completely. What my favorite thing about growing and building a business is like the building side of it. I love working in Notion so much. I built so many different things for myself in Notion. Obviously, I built this portal for a client as well earlier in the year, and I built templates and all sorts of business systems in Notion. So yeah, I recently built another template in like a travel planner template in Notion as well that I'm going to try to get out there. So yeah, I think when I'm the happiest business wise is when I get to sit down and actually build things. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like well, you're designing like a sort of a private space for travelers to get everything they need.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think having had the experience of something similar to this, it's obviously not what they had, it's not exactly what I've designed, but something similar to this, where I was really so impressed with the level of kind of care that went into it, the level of thought that went into it, and just having a aesthetically beautifully designed space rather than a, I don't know, 14-page PDF or multiple scattered emails with information you have to dig through. So to have that single space and to have experienced that as a customer and as someone who travels a lot, I really thought, wow, this is something that will be amazing for people to have on trips, both from the host side and from the guest side. Because I think from the host side, you save a lot of time answering the same question, save a lot of time on admin, and then from the guest side, it's just incredible having everything in the central space, right? Plus, it's nice, like it's like a little private website for this specific trip. So,
Yeah. Do you think travelers get overwhelmed by information?
yeah, for sure. That's one of the things that I had because I built a portal like this for a digital nomad fest in Vietnam that I visited earlier this year, and I spoke to a few of the attendees afterwards, and they had been, using kind of the website, the schedule, or the app, or they had been using my Notion, and they said that they preferred using the Notion, and they said like otherwise the information can be scattered in so many different places, and that chaos is difficult to deal with for some people. So for some people to have all the information in one place where you just like click through your categories and knowing that everything is there helps a lot. And I think for me as well, right? Having everything in one place is just a complete game changer comparing to like, oh, which email did they send this information, and digging through them, or having to remember to star your emails or save them, or maybe take the information from your email yourself and save them somewhere else so you have everything. But here, then the host would have provided you with everything that you need, really. So
Yeah. Do you think this sort of structure could help travelers make decisions about journeys? Because that's kind of why I asked about information overwhelm. I think of the experience that my parents had. I'd be dragged along to the whole journey creation process, and of course I'd love travel shops as they used to be, because it was just like lots of shiny brochures and pictures all over the place. And it seemed to be an art form. The best travel advisors seem to be the ones that who are good listeners, but they could pull the right brochure based on the answers to the questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think this specific product is something that you would receive after you book. So when you booked a group trip, for example, or a retreat, then the host would send you the link to this, and you would have this specific information. But I'm sure you could build something similar as well, absolutely, for pre. But I'm thinking that's probably more like people would have websites, and they would have information packets maybe about trips. This is more post booking and then pre and during trip, really, as well, that they can use this.
Now, you mentioned going on a nomad cruise. Now, the whole concept of nomadic travelers has been around for a while. What attracted you about going on a nomadic cruise? Was it Is it simply that you could work while traveling, or is it I don't know, a great place to connect with similar minded people? What were you expecting, and what did you get?
Yeah, so it's community for sure for me. So I actually heard about it first in last summer when I was here in Sweden building my business the first time around. I heard about I listened to a podcast about digital nomads, and I heard about this cruise, this company, and then I immediately went and I thought, and because the whole kind of philosophy of the cruise is community and making friends in the nomad community, because I'm a chronic solo traveler and I love solo traveling, but I still want to have a community somehow, right? Like I don't want to. I'm an extroverted introvert. I don't want to be alone all the time. So I thought this is great. This is what I need. I need to be around people who are similar to me or who have already like obviously started businesses, running successful businesses while traveling, like being around that kind of entrepreneurial spirit. So yeah, and I think what I love about how they do it is that there's a cruise which might be a week or 2 weeks or sometimes even longer, and then they always have pre-unions first in the port of embarkation for up to a week beforehand, and then they also have reunions afterwards in the place where they arrive. So they might well, for example, then the one I went to was in Asia, and it was from Hong Kong to the Philippines via a few other countries. So we spent a week in Hong Kong beforehand, and then 3 weeks in the Philippines afterwards as well, with not everyone, but with a lot of people. And then I spent a month in Vietnam as well afterwards with people from the cruise. So I think when I heard about it and I heard these stories about how people travel together after and how they make friends for life, that's what really sold me. And that's I just felt immediately like this is something that I need. Like this is what I need right now in this stage of my life, and that's what. And then yeah, I spoke to a couple of people who had been on Nomad Cruise and that I found through another community, and they said it's life changing. And I was sold, and then I put it down as a goal immediately for next year, for this year then. And yeah, just shortly after that, I booked the cruise for February.
Oh wow! Well,
Yeah.
sounds like you got the bug.
Yeah, I know. It was an incredible experience.
Now, some of my guests who have also become friends, this particular person I'm thinking of, he's been a nomadic traveler for many years, and one of the things we sometimes talk about is how the nomadic landscape is changing. It's becoming easier to adopt this lifestyle. Countries are More and more countries are adopting favorable visa systems. We've gone from a few hotspots to perhaps a growing network of hotspots around the world. But he always says his biggest bugbear is always getting good quality, secure Wi-Fi networks and places to where he can sort of not lock himself away, but sort of be able to do his work in a sort of a good, secure type environment. What's your impression of the current state of facilities, if you like, for nomadic travelers? Is it getting better? Is there some places better than others?
Yeah, I think some places better than others for sure. Obviously, like working while traveling is kind of new to me. It's only something that I've been doing in the past year, less than a year even. But yeah, for sure. I've had some really, really good experiences with some co-working spaces, which I thought were incredible. I went to one really, really beautiful, amazing co-working space in Sri Lanka. So sometimes I will go to co-working spaces, and sometimes I will just work from my room or my accommodation where I was staying. I went on a digital nomad kind of 1 month long vacation last year, and that was nice. We had an office space that we could use, and then of course we could also use in our rooms. But yeah, I think of course it's important as well to make sure that you have your own security. Like I have a VPN, for example, that I would use when I'm on a public Wi-Fi. But yeah, I think it's you can make it work, right? I think it also depends a little bit maybe on who you are and what you require from like how heavy internet use do you need. Like if you're a video editor, maybe you might need a lot more kind of usage than I do, for example. But yeah, I think it depends a bit. I haven't had any problems really. I haven't had any. I've been able to work when I wanted to work. Sometimes I'll work from cafes or different places. But yeah, for me it's been fine so far. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's you find the environments, don't you, that
Yeah.
suit your personality to a certain extent.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't dress up every co-working space the way you want it, so therefore
No.
you're kind of assessing, aren't you, in real time, what sort of place I fancy working there, or I'll try this and I'll try something else.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
One thing I'm becoming increasingly aware of is that the traditional holiday stroke vacation, it's beginning to get shattered in a way. You know, there doesn't seem to be any sort of one way of going for trips now. So I was just wondering, you know, how you feel about, you know, the rise of alternative type travel. So let me give you an example. I mean, how do you feel about the concept of slower travel? So, you know, you hear about people going around with checklists and all the rest of it. Well, I've only got a week, I've only got 2 weeks. And when anybody suggests to them, well, if you considered only doing half or a third of that, and actually feeling some sort of connection to fewer places.
Yeah, I 100%, I agree with that. Like I much prefer taking my time in a place. I like to stay in a place for longer. Of course, as well, it makes sense when you're working, you need to slow down a bit more. But yeah, I prefer to take my time and get to know a place a little bit better. I think it's great to do that. I think it's great that that kind of more slow travel mentality is starting up. And then on the flip end of that, there's also a huge rise in extreme day trips now as well, which is the flip side of that, right? Which is also really could be exciting, I guess. But I love the idea of spending more time. And for me personally as well, I don't travel to go and tick off a bunch of sites really. I like to just exist in a different place is kind of how I see it. And then just I live my life there. Like I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm traveling all the time or I'm not a tourist, not because I'm the word tourist, but like 'cause I'm mostly just I kind of exist in a different place and I go and do my thing. Maybe I do my work or I go for walks or hikes or I go to a cafe or a restaurant where I cook my food or whatever it is. In a way, it's living normal life. It's just living normal life in different places, right? So it's not like I go and tick off sites all the time and be a tourist or a traveler really. And I think that that part of slow travel I think is really nice. You get to experience a place in a different way. You get to really get to know a place better and feel the vibe of it. You can maybe interact with the locals more. You can even, for your short period that you're there, you can become a local if you go to the same place every day and you get to know the people there.
Well, I was going to ask that next, actually. Is there a point where you actually feel like a local?
I think it's obviously hard. Like I spent 4 months in Puerto Escondido last year in Mexico, and at some point, yeah, maybe you do feel a little bit like a local, but not really. Like you're kind of like a fake local, right? Because you're not. Ultimately you're still there passing through. But I really like as much as I say I'm addicted to change, I really love going back to the same places as well. I will often return to the same places where I've been before. And especially if I'm in a place for a long time, if I find a place where I love that has great food, for example, there was one place in Ahangam in Sri Lanka I tried rice and curry in many, many different local places. There was one that I loved the most, so I ended up going back there a lot. Like not every day, but I ended up going back there many, many times. And then they, they would recognize me, and we would chat a little bit, and then they would know what I wanted to order, things like this. So in some ways, I'm a creature of habit, and I like that. I like feeling like, yeah, there's a little bit of a connection. It's not something huge, and then of course you move on, but there is a bit of a connection there. I think it's meaningful.
Yeah, no, it's you're right. It is a good feeling. You're almost creating a home away from home.
Yeah,
Do you think
exactly.
it's a sort of a deeply held human need? Because people do feel anxiety, don't they, when they travel? I mean, I felt lonely from time to time.
Yeah.
I don't always understand why it happens. It can be for the most silliest of reasons, like a certain sound, a certain smell, an overheard conversation, and yeah, we get some very strange feelings, don't we, when we travel?
Absolutely, yeah, and I think especially when you solo travel as well, I think it's important to find your own ways of well, first of all, I think it's super important to be able to be with yourself, right? If you're able to be with yourself, then you're able to solo travel, and you're not um, maybe going to be lonely in the same way, or kind of deal with the same anxieties. But yeah, I think it's just important to find what works for you, of course. And I think, yeah, everyone want some form of connection, community, and whether that be connection to other people, or connection to animals, connection to nature, connection to the food you're eating. I don't know what it is, but we want some sort of connection, right, to something. And yeah, finding that. I think when you travel, especially tying back to slow travel, I think it's easier finding that when you're not rushing around trying to see everything in a short period of time, where you might not even really stop to look at things because you're too busy taking photos of them. And like, I love photography when I travel. I'm a hobby photographer as well. I just take photos with my phone, but like that's one of the things I enjoy. But yeah, I think maybe when people rush around seeing every possible site that they can see, taking photos of them, sometimes I think they forget. I sometimes as well, to just admire something and to truly see it and be present in that moment. And then the memories are what we can see on our in our photos later, instead of kind of what we remember, right?
Yeah, so there's a danger, isn't there, that you can travel too fast, visit many countries, but not remember any of them.
Yeah, absolutely, right. I mean, I think there's something to be said for it. Like, I went on a kind of a fast trip a couple of years ago, where I just wanted to have a different experience, where I flew to Faro in Portugal, spent one night there, and then I went to Sevilla and I spent one night there, and then to Cordoba one night, and then Malaga one night, and then flew back to Scotland. And that was also, interesting, but that was not for the sake of I need to see all these places. There was just an experience for me to do while I had 4 days off from work. So, but yeah, I think for sure, like rushing around. I always, when I see, because I'm in a lot of travel groups on Facebook, for example, when I see these itineraries where they're going to spend, they hear 2 days here, and they're going to see all of Europe or half of Europe in 10 days, 2 weeks or something, and they're going to see all the major capital cities. It just makes me go like, oh no. But of course, if that's what they want and if that's what makes them happy, then that's what they should do. But yeah, I personally think there's something to be said for getting to know a place better, and really having those memories. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think it's possible to, you said that when you were in Mexico, you felt a kind of vibe, almost like the rhythm of that location spoke to you. Do you think we can all learn to find that wherever we go?
Mm, Yeah, I don't know, how would you learn to, because for me this is just something that I have, I think, like with a place I either connect with it maybe or I don't, but I feel like I'm almost amazed by almost every place I go to. Like same in Morocco, I love it so much with like the colors and the smell of mint tea and the people that want to talk to you, the crazy, the milling in in the Medinas, in the souks, and there's so many places like that. And I think it's about I don't know, just being open and letting yourself feel it and letting yourself experience it. Maybe I'm not really really sure how you, but because it's just something that that's kind of who I am. I don't know. I just feel a place really, really deeply, I guess, maybe, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Maybe it's just maybe just the art of slowing down and observing
Yeah,
is part of that process. And as you say, it's just
observing. Yeah,
you can't always put a finger on it. It's not a button or an app on your phone.
yeah,
you you just have to observe.
exactly. Be in the moment. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, you clearly love travel as a life as a lifestyle. One thing you mentioned, which caught my attention, is that you say that you love airports, and I
Yeah.
thought, oh, and now I actually know someone who loves airports like I do.
Oh
so,
yes, you as well.
so what does that mean? You just like observing other travelers?
No. I call myself an aviation geek, though I'm not as much of an aviation geek as some real aviation geeks, for sure. I don't know as much, but I love everything about commercial aviation, which I guess started back when I was 18 and I worked for Lufthansa and I had to learn all the airport codes of all the places we flew. So, I don't know. It's weird. I love everything everything about it. And being at an airport for me is just, yeah, it's a place I feel at home. I love everything about it. Like, I don't know. I mean, maybe I don't love going through the security control. Apart from that, it's a really nice place to be, I think, and it's exciting. You're going somewhere, or maybe you're going home to something, or there's there's a lot of dreams, fantasies passing through airports, a sense of freedom and excitement and adventure. And but yeah, I love planes. I always I will fly. Sometimes I will choose a route or an airline based on the aircraft that they're flying. For example, this year when I flew from Athens over to Singapore, I flew with Turkish Airlines, and I chose that specific flight and route because it was operated by an Airbus A350, which I'd never flown before. So I wanted to fly that aircraft. So I will do these sort of things, and I will look at Flight Radar 24, for example, to see to track planes, friends when they're flying. Maybe I'll track them there, and yeah, I just have this kind of odd interest in aviation, which is probably not as deep as some other people, but more so than the average Joe, I guess. Yeah.
But in the moderate to big airports, you can see the world passing by, though, can't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And then there are some fascinating airports as well. Like Singapore airport, for example, is very famous, and everyone knows how huge that is. But I had a great time flying out of Singapore this year when I flew from Singapore to Bangkok. I made a whole day of it. I arrived 5 hours early to make sure that I could visit the whole airport, try a few of the lounges, go to the butterfly garden. I've been there before, but this was years ago. So I think now I had a different I went everywhere I could. I went to all the different terminals. I went around the whole airport 5 hours. It was great. It's not something that probably most people would do, but I thought it was amazing.
Yeah, and you're going to have to go back because they're making it bigger.
Yeah, exactly. Great reason to go back to Singapore. Yeah.
So, in kind of encompassing our conversation today, I always like to ask your feelings of future directions. I mean, where do you think the travel industry is going, and what do you hope for your own travel experience?
Where I think the travel industry is going, I think more meaningful travel, more meaningful connections. I think people are, I love to see that there's more and more and more like little kind of small curated group trips happening. I think that's really nice, especially for solo travelers who might not want to travel solo, they want to meet people. You find the community there, you know, of like-minded people that you can travel with, which is really nice. And then a lot of these companies are offering more kind of curated travel experiences, which is different. And then of course I'm not sure mainstream travel like as it is, you know, will change anytime in the time that we will see. I don't know, but I think definitely more sort of more meaningful travel and kind of curated experiences and more boutique experiences, I think. And then personally for me, I want to I want to have more experiences as well with like community. So where I slow down and I spend a month, 2 months, 3 months in the same place, maybe kind of nomad workation style opportunities as well, where I can kind of live or stay with other nomads. Because at the end of the day, even though chronic solo traveler, I still want that community of people around who are the same, and kind of trying to find that with intention. It's in my future. And then also, I want to be able to like visit dog shelters where I can. That's definitely in my plan. And then just kind of making sure that communities that I pass through benefit, and not just me or other travelers. Like I think that's also important, is considering the impact that I have when I travel on these communities. And I think slowing down, going to places in the off season, going to places that are maybe not as big, not as as famous, going to the lesser known places, I think that's a great way of doing that as well. So
many exciting possibilities ahead.
We'll see.
Well, Johanna, it's been an absolute blast having a chat to you today. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Alex. It's been really nice to chat.
No, you're most welcome.
Thank you. Have a good day.